Let's get the ball rolling before we worry about the small stuff. Ask away. I'll respond to each query as soon as I can. Nowadays, I have very little to do with the deletion process of stories and mostly just oversee things. Imperaline Victiv and others have taken up my past role as top shitposted editor, and I know they are better at it than I was. But I digress. Bad stories are usually deleted at my discretion. Now, whether someone gets admin in the first place largely depends on a, how good their judgment is found to be, and b, whether they can tell bad stories from good stories, one of the absolute minimum requirements for an admin, although it's ultimately up to the community. For a bit of history, in the Wiki's early days, 2011 to 2012 mainly, admins would flag bad stories for deletion and set up a 1-3 day deletion poll that everyone could vote on, but this system quickly proved ineffective. Bad stories were coming in faster than they could be flagged for deletion, and most people who voted on the polls didn't know shit fuck about what made a good creepypasta, mostly because voting on polls doesn't even require an account, and they were anonymous votes. Our solution to this was simply to set forth stricter quality standards, which pretty much every regular user agreed with. The drawback is that this made the admin position 1000x more difficult, as most of the site's workload was placed on their backs. In the end, though, this made things much more efficient for the site as a whole. It's not perfect, but it's something. Also, many of the uber-popular pastas, like JTK, were booted off based on community consensus. They might have had large fan bases, but everyone on the wiki wanted them gone. As for the hierarchy thing, no. Admins are basically unpaid janitors. To even refer to it as a hierarchy is laughable. In my opinion, a user's worth is based on how good of a contributor they are, and while a good chunk of the admins have that going for them, there's many stellar non-admin contributors as well. If the author knows basic storytelling concepts and their story doesn't read like an errand list, their story will usually pass muster. It has to have a somewhat original concept, too. Jake the Murderer ain't gonna cut it. If someone's story is deleted, they can often get it approved in deletion appeal after reworking it in the writer's workshop. People who just submit deletion appeals without making an effort to improve their story will almost always be denied. This doesn't always work, though. Oftentimes the story is simply unsalvageable and needs to be scrapped altogether. As for an example of a story that barely passes the QS, I can't really think of one, but here's some links you might find helpful. I'm a crappy pasta connoisseur, so I'm often at Trollpasta Wiki to curate the content in deletion log refugees. The TPW and CPW communities are pretty different. There's not that much overlap. I steer clear of lost episodes and VG pastas 99% of the time. As for favorite creepypastas, here's a few. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. No. I'm a lifelong reader and have done some writing here and there over the years. I've never tried my hand at writing creepypasta/horror, but I might give it a shot if I ever feel like it. Also, the claims of nepotism thing is just wrong. One of our finest and most popular admins also happens to be one of the best writers on the Wiki. Overall, yeah. But within the Wiki community and other online horror fiction communities, like r/nusleep, I would say enthusiasm hasn't waned at all. If anything, it's getting better all the time. This might be because the overall one-in interest in creepypasta means that rabid JTK faint girls/12-year-olds aren't shitting up the place as much, so more actual good writers are joining up and contributing. I prefer to keep my online life and personal life separate. All you need to know about me is that I love good creepypastas and love to laugh at shitty creepypastas. Pac-Man. For this quote, just let me go to the party, Dad, before I call the cops. Blood whistle, hands down. I remember when that guy first linked it on my talk page along with several other VG pastas he didn't think met the QS. I knew it would be a keg of shit, but I was unprepared for the sheer level of pretentiousness in hack writing. Got about 1/4 of the way through it before deleting it out of disgust. Not even good for entertainment purposes. Plagiarism is my biggest pet peeve, for obvious reasons. People not knowing what show, don't tell means, using a passive writing style or overusing/misusing ellipses are also big ones. I'm not even going to get into the creepy cliches because those are just too obvious. Why? Because I carried out the majority of deletions in 2013, parts of 2014, including those of popular pastas. Also, my name is in all caps, so I guess I'm the most noticeable. As for the amount of crap stories that have slipped under the radar of stories, yeah, that'll happen when there's only 5 people at any given time actively monitoring a site with more than 11,000 pages. Doubly so if there's a massive backlog of shit pastas from 2011 to 2012. Remember what I said about the deletion polls? Yeah. Poe, definitely. I'm also fond of Lovecraft, but Poe was one of the first horror authors I read, so I guess he has kind of a nostalgic value for me. Not sure that I do. I'll have to think on that one. Not very often. I've listened to a few Mr. Creepypasta readings, but I don't really like the sound of his voice. Same goes for most YouTube creepypasta readers I've heard, though I haven't really listened to that many. For creepypasta readers, the only one I can say I enjoyed was Retsupire. I think the rest are just obnoxious and unfunny Mountain Standard Time 3K wannabes, but that's just my opinion. And to be fair, I only watched a couple videos from Yuri Ufwind and Michelle Roy. Maybe they just weren't in top form in the videos I watched. I made a ton of edits which mostly consisted of me tagging shitty poke pastas / Minecraft pastas / lost episodes / etc. for deletion. There was a lot of that shit before we installed the abuse filter, which basically stops pages containing certain keywords from being created, that is, lost episode, Pokemon, X, something, the killer, etc. Briefs. While I tend to lean more towards 70s / 80s rock, since that's what I grew up listening to, I try to listen to a little of everything. Lately I've been on a bit of an industrial music kick. I'd say the most common mistake people who try to write creepypastas is that they read nothing but creepypasta. Anyone who does this will invariably pick up terrible writing habits, and they won't know any better because they have nothing better to compare it to. My advice to aspiring creepypasta writers is read something that's not creepypasta. It would save a lot of tears when their shitpasta is inevitably deleted. No, I think we've just about covered everything. Anytime, man. Thanks for being so courteous.